to meet you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. You are Sam Bunch, the author of 2 books, Collective Conversations and Menopause, a Hot Topic.
That's right.
Which is what we're going to discuss about, menopause. But what I love is you said on your website that you collect conversations. I find it fascinating. I love this expression. So I hope our conversation is going to be very interesting tonight.
Well, I hope so.
Yes. So you are also a writer, obviously, if you wrote books, and an interviewer. You are a TEDx speaker. And the subject was Want to Learn About Life, Stop to Listen. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah, cool. You're also a complementary therapist in the sense that you are a naturopath and reflexologist. I've mentioned the 2 books already out, which I'm going to develop a bit later. But you are currently interviewing for your next book, and you are interviewing men this time, 100 men.
100 men.
And it's going to be called Men Talk, is that correct?
I'm not sure. That's the working title. We're going with that for now because I've not actually done the writing of the book yet. I'm just doing the interviews.
Okay. Where are you in the process?
Nearly there. I've done 80 and it's taken me 3 years.
Wow.
It takes a long time.
So you're doing different projects at the same time? You're not?
No. It's a process where my first book, Collecting Conversations, was 100 women. That took me 7 years because I didn't know what I was doing. And I thought, I'm not just going to have a conversation with women only. I always knew I was going to be talking to 100 men, but it's just taken me a very, very, very long time. And I am at 3 years in. I've only got 20 men to interview. And once I finish that, then I'll collate all my information, then I'll write it. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll see.
Oh, great. And you also said you're a playwright.
Yeah. I do too many things, I think. Must learn to do less. Less is more. Now, the reason why I'm doing the playwriting is because it works. I'm writing some men's monologues to go with the book. So when I'm going to try and be a bit more digital and go on YouTube a bit more and well, not me personally, but get actors to go through some of the conversations that I've had. I've made them into monologues and they are beautiful because they're not my words, they're the men's words, and I've just collated them and put them together.
Yeah. Men's words are very, very different from women's words, isn't it?
Not really. You'll be surprised.
Okay. Is that the same age as the women you interviewed?
I interviewed, my youngest woman was 30, my oldest woman was 96. My youngest man so far is 19, and the oldest so far is 92.
Okay.
And I asked them all the same questions. There's 18 questions, and it's a conversation. It's a bit like what you're doing. You ask questions, but you don't know where the question, it's not a yes or no answer, it's a conversation. You just follow.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. And on average, I'd say the interviews take between 3 and 4 hours.
Per conversation. Oh my God! It's like they just open themselves to you and
yeah. And then I have anywhere between 15 and 80,000 words per interview to type up. So I've created a lovely little monster. It is a lovely project, it really, really is, but it's a huge amount of work. So
yeah,
it's taken me so long.
I can imagine. Okay, so that's already an impressive bio. Now I'd like to move on to asking you a more specific question about things. I was very interested in your website. I could feel, it's the same thing as your book. I mean, the one I read. and I found out that you wrote, as we enter 2020, I feel invigorated. My menopause seems to have given up the ghost, hopefully.
That's what I said.
Yes, that's what I said. And I was really happy because I learned an expression I had no idea what it meant.
What, giving up the ghost?
Yeah, and Google told me it means to die. So my understanding is your menopause die, as in you don't have any more symptoms. Is that?
Well, do you know what? Until this week, and I genuinely don't know, I have not had any symptoms for well over a year. And my menopause went on for 4 years and my perimenopause went on for 3 years before that. So I was glad to see the back of it this time last year. And I don't know what's happened, and I'm hoping it's just a little blip, and it's nothing, it really is nothing to get excited about, but I've had a couple of hot flushes this week.
Oh no.
And I'm thinking, that's not good. Because
it's not.
This is it. But it's not, honestly, to be honest, a couple of hot flushes is nothing compared to what I've had.
Okay. So basically 2021 is as good as 2020, apart from this week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Much better. I feel like me, because I thought I'd gone.
Okay.
It's quite. Where are you? Are you menopausal?
As in, do I have symptoms?
Yeah.
Yes. I started having symptoms 2 years ago, and they're completely manageable with lifestyle, nutrition and lifestyle. So I'm very lucky. Yeah. The worst that I had was some kind of waking up in the middle of the night, quite sweaty, but it's completely disappeared. So yeah, so far so good. So perimenopausal, to answer your questions.
Okay. And obviously everybody's different, but now I'm not going to. You fire away.
No, you
I'll
can ask me
start
questions.
Talking, and then that's it.
It's a conversation. It's an exchange. I don't have to keep asking you questions. If you want to ask questions, I'm happily answering anything you want, basically, about my menopause. I listened to your TED Talk, the one you did in Clapham in 2018, which is for those who watch us from abroad. It's in London, in the United Kingdom. And I love when you say, I found out my favorite question is, how are you? Because it takes most people an hour to answer. So what would happen if I asked you now, how are you?
Well, we might be here a while. No, to be fair, the reason why that is, obviously it's just a greeting. That's how we talk to everybody when we meet anybody in the street or the bus stop. We just say, hi, how are you? And everybody just says fine. 99% of people just say fine, and it is a greeting. And I was being a bit pedantic because I've always enjoyed watching people greet each other and wanted to know what they would really say if they were given the time and the space to answer that question. And where would you go? And it's an open-ended question, because if you then say to people, how are you? Most people then go, well, I'm fine. How are you? And I go, yeah. But how are you really? Now, really, how are you? Today, I'm not saying about yesterday or how you might be tomorrow, but often then you give them that space and people just unfold. And then you just weave, like, in a normal conversation, you just weave wherever you're going and you go with it. And you generally get an insight into what's going on in somebody's life.
Yes. And did you manage to get people to open up, like strangers to open up to this question? Because it can be very personal. Yeah,
I think that's sort of my forte, really, because I've been listening to people since I was 24 as a job, as a profession. I'm now 53, so that's nearly 20 years. And I'm genuinely curious. That's what I'm like. I'd rather talk about other people than myself. And that doesn't mean to say I don't want to give a little bit of me away, but I know me inside out. And I realise you have to share yourself as well. But I'd much rather listen to somebody else than listen to me, because it's like, oh yeah, here we go again.
Yes, actually, you in the TEDx talk, you asked 3 more questions that I found fascinating, and then I might pinch you for my other guests, because I'm in my journey, at the very beginning of my journey as an interviewer. So it's really hard. It's not my background. It's completely new. It's a different language as well for me. So I'd like to ask you 3 of these questions today, if that's okay. The first one is, how do you think other people see you?
Funnily enough, when I interviewed the 100 women, I should have been the first person to have the questions given to me, and I didn't think about it. And one of the ladies I interviewed, she said, have you done this? And I went, no. And she said, you really have to do this. And I thought, I probably do. So I was number 50 in my 100. So halfway through, the very first lady I interviewed came around to my house and she interviewed me. And the questions were really hard.
They are.
Because actually, it's easy to ask somebody else those questions. But when you turn them around and you go, oh my God, I've asked this 50 times. So what did you ask me?
So I ask you, how do you think other people see you?
As a positive person, as a curiosity person, always enthusiastic, interested, creative, I'd say.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a very positive view. Love that.
Yeah.
And what do you like about yourself?
Those things, very much those things. I like me. And to be honest, I've always liked me, and not in any big-headed sort of way. I spend a lot of time on my own. I don't know if you can see, but I have a shed at the bottom of my garden. I don't think you can see it really. I had it built 2 years ago, and it's transformed my life. I'm like a little hermit. I come in here and I chat to people on Zoom or whatever.
Yeah.
But I like my own company, and yeah, I'm just naturally curious. So I just enjoy myself, really. I mean, obviously, you have your down days, and hormones add to that, and you know, family life. I've got 3 children and a husband, and now a dog. But yeah, I'm curious about life, and I want to get the best out of life. I want to. My motto is leave this life having reached my full potential, whatever that means.
That's a good one. Really good one. And the last question, I mean, you mentioned about life and death and so on. So my last question would be, what do you think about life? Because you're super optimistic and positive. So what's your vision of life?
I think it's just an amazing journey, experience. It's a curiosity. You can't, you know, there's just so much going on all the time, but you have to learn to not be out there so much. I think you've got to hold back a little bit. Quality over quantity, and I think that takes quite a long time to understand that. Even now, again, another little mantra I have for myself is quality over quantity. But I'm a typical Sagittarian. I'm a bit over the top, a bit big, so I get too enthusiastic and excited. So the menopause, in a weird sort of way, has calmed me down a bit, because I'm not so do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And has the lockdown changed anything about that attitude?
Yeah. I think I'm just more disciplined. I'm more disciplined and more focused, and not so, because we haven't been allowed out, obviously, and you know, doing what you would do normally. Just being distracted by, you know, everyday stuff, it hasn't been there. So I've actually interviewed, the first 2 years I only interviewed 35 men. This last year I've done another 50, well, 45. So I've really, you know, I come down the shed in the morning and I just get on with creating, I suppose.
So the timing of the building the shed was perfect, just before the first lockdown.
Perfect. Absolutely. Couldn't have timed it any better, to be honest. And I have a lovely view, because I sit in my shed and I look out into the garden. All my family are in my house, which is 18 steps from my shed. So I just get on. It's like I come to work every day in my own studio. It's lovely.
Yeah, it must be. You also mentioned about the fear of invisibility, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, and worries, which is basically what happened when I started having symptoms, and I didn't know really what it was. Even though I studied that, I felt I was way too young for that. Well, I was 44, but I just had, you know, my son, so I could relate to that. Is that what inspired you to write your second book about the menopause, a hot topic?
The whole menopause business took me by surprise, to be honest. I knew it was coming. My mum talked about hers, you know, and I went through hers with her. So I wasn't under any illusions that it wasn't coming. But I didn't expect it to be like it was. And it was really horrible, really horrible. You know, I'm not a big drinker. I very, very rarely drink alcohol, actually, because it doesn't suit me. I have a sweet tooth, there's no doubt about it. But, you know, I'm fairly fit. I exercise a lot. I do lots of yoga. I meditate. I live quite a simple life. I'm not. So it literally, would I say floored me? I don't know how to say it floored me, but it really did knock me for six, because I think the first 3 years of being perimenopausal, I didn't fully appreciate that I was perimenopausal until my period stopped. And then I looked back and thought, oh my God, all those aches and pains that I've been having for 3 years. And I'm highly, highly sensitive in my body. It's ridiculous. I realised that all that was perimenopause, and all them vanished. And then I got a whole new load of symptoms. And it started in 2016, May 2016. And it was literally symptom after symptom after symptom after symptom. And the only way for me to process it was to write it down, just to literally notebook by my bed. I'm waking up in the morning going, what's happened today? You know, nothing fancy. And there was just so many weird and wonderful symptoms. Not wonderful at all. They were horrible. And the first thing was that the following month, when I should have got my period, but it all finished, I was going on a girls' weekend, walking weekend. I could hardly get out of bed, let alone go for a walk. My Achilles tendon was buggered, absolutely buggered. And that was the symptom that lasted the longest. And for 3 years, I just hobbled for 3 years and just thought, oh, this is it, the beginning of the end, you know. And 3 years of symptoms, I was getting so pig sick that I woke up one morning. I think it was not last May, the May before. I had no intentions of writing a little book about the menopause. I'm not interested, to be honest. I think it's a horrible thing, but I think it was my own purging, and I had a lot of fun writing it. It's a tiny little book. Here it is. It's a teeny weeny little book. It's only the size of a postcard. You've seen? Yeah, you've got it.
I was going to introduce you after this question. I introduce it.
But it is literally the size of a postcard. So it was for me really more than anything. It was a purging and getting it out of me. It didn't take me very long at all because I had a lot of fun writing it. It was very cathartic, and I spoke to 50 women and asked them to give me their little hints and tips and their experiences. And I just and it just felt like that's what I needed to do. You know, I didn't want to be, it's not about advice, it's not about anything medical, it's just a real life experience of living through the menopause. So that was the whole, and to be honest, once I'd done it, I just thought, right, that's it. I'm getting it out, I'm purging it. I don't want to know any more about this bloody thing.
Basically, it's your journey that you wanted just to put in writing and just move away, and that ended up into this beautiful book, which is, as you said, the size of a postcard. It's pretty thin. It's like 96 pages, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I just loved it. I started it, and then I had to finish because it was so nice, easy to read, and very candid and bold at the same time, to share so much. And I really appreciate it. And I think what I really liked about it, before, you know, I like to browse and stuff, but I came across your first quotes, which is, if you're looking for answers, I don't have any.
That's it.
And I'm like, wow, that's the perfect book for me, because I read books about menopause and solution and treatment and all day long. And you're a book on menopause without any of that. I was like, I have to read it. And yeah, I didn't know about you or your book, and you were kind enough to send it to me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing, you know.
Well, as I say, you know, there are a lot of books out there, and it is getting a lot of press and, you know, awareness, which is brilliant, and we you do need to know about it. It's not something, you know, as women, we go through periods, you know, that's what we go through, and we tested and we, you know, looked at and prodded and poked until we get to menopause. Then nobody tells us what's happening next, and then we all think we're going a bit bonkers.
Yeah. So it's called Menopause, a Hot Topic, and the author is Sam Bunch.
And you can get it from my website. There are some shops but I can't, to be honest, I'm so out of sync with all the shops being shut that I can't actually remember where. You can get it in Waterstones and your local bookshops, but really Collecting Conversations is my website, which you can get it from there. Then I'll send it to you.
First, you start talking about you with the start, the middle, and the end, which is a lot of humor, but basically it is what it is. And you describe all the symptoms. And the first time I read that, I thought, oh my God, she must go through hell, because on average, women experience 7 symptoms, but not all at the same time, same intensity. And then when you read that, it never ends. And it's like, oh gosh.
It was like getting on a train and you're picking up passengers, and the passengers were symptoms. And some of them didn't last very long. Like the eye thing, that is weird. There's this symptom one day, and I knew it was a menopausal symptom because my mum had it. And it was like somebody got a burning needle and shoved it in the centre of my iris and twizzled it around like that. The pain, as you can imagine, was excruciating. And I've subsequently asked other women about this, and they've had it. It's not everybody's symptom at all, but it definitely is a menopausal symptom.
Yeah, it's weird that you say that, because actually my very first symptom was extremely dry eyes. And it came out of the blue, no reason. And then I thought, okay, it's going to disappear. And then within the next 1 or 2 weeks, I had like this kind of waking up in the middle of the night in sweat and I had something else like anxiety, and I never had anxiety in my entire life. And I was like, hang on a minute, that's not me. Nothing has changed in my life. What's going on? So I went onto Google and I realized, oh my God, that's it.
And I think that's the thing. It's sort of, again, it's a cliche, but it is unique to everybody. And everybody, some people don't have it at all. They don't have any symptoms. And I think it's a fifth of women don't have anything.
25, yeah.
And it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. And then other women are suicidal. And that scale, and we're all somewhere on that scale. And some women it lasts 6 months, some women it lasts 6 years, 10 years. In fact, I did speak to one lady who was 72 and she was still having hot flushes, and I just thought, oh my God.
Yes, I've read that sometimes you can have symptoms 12 to 15 years after reaching the menopause stage, so after not having any periods anymore. So it really varies. My advice is, as soon as you start having symptoms, try to deal with it, because you never know how long it's going to last and how many symptoms and how much it's going to change your life. So
it's such a personal thing, because I'm one of these people that I'm really, really rubbish at taking anything. So I never went on the pill just because I knew I would never take it.
You mentioned that.
I've spent my life buying potions and lotions and stacking them up in my cupboard, and I take them for a day or a week and then I forget. So I knew that the whole HRT thing was going to be problematic for me, because that's my personality. But I went to see a few people, and eventually I went to the Chelsea Westminster Menopausal Clinic, which I was on a waiting list for a long while. And she said, oh, yeah, you're definitely a candidate for HRT. We can give you this pump with all this stuff, whatever it was in it. And I went away with the prescription, I knew full well I wouldn't use it, because I just know what I'm like. And, it's a ridiculous thing to say, but I just know I wouldn't. And then within 2 weeks of that consultation, my symptoms seemed to stop. And for me, I just thought, oh my God, if I'd have taken HRT, I would probably be on it for the rest of my life. And I didn't need to be, because 2 weeks later, my symptoms have almost stopped. Do you know what I mean? So I think watching your symptoms and trying to find some kind of cycle within that. And that's very difficult, because when you've got your period, you're so used to your cycle and how it works for you.
But you were journaling a lot, so it was easy. I mean, perhaps it was easier for you to refer back and find a cycle, some kind of ways that your symptoms appear and disappear, no? Isn't it?
Yeah. And I think also there's something, because you forget, your memory is shot to pieces, and you forget that you've had a symptom, and then it comes up again maybe 18 months later, and you think it's new, but because I wrote it down, I was like, oh, I've been here before, I know this one. So for me, definitely journaling it, not in any fancy way, just jotting down. In fact, you should see the book that I wrote them in. It's a dreadful book. It's just by my bed, and it's just like, but it just made me get it off my chest, but also acknowledge what I'd had, so that when it did come round again. And then what I did notice, because I was journaling, again, it's not exact, it's not a science at all, but I found that I had, the first year was 3 months. The second year was 6 months. The third year was 9 months. And the fourth year was a whole year. Do you mean as in symptoms?
Oh, you only had symptoms for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months in a year?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so that's weird. That's weird in itself. Yeah. So the first year I got the menopause, or my period stopped, I had a lot of symptoms, but only for 3 months. And then it stopped. I thought, oh, that's good. It's finished.
Was it at the same time of the year?
Yeah.
Which season was it?
It started off with spring. It's weird. It started with spring, and then the next year it got spring, summer. Then it got spring, summer, autumn, and then it went the whole year round. Give or take, I'm not being exact, but
of course, yes.
And it was only with hindsight that I could see, there is a bit of a rhythm to this. Well, for me. So sometimes I just think you've got to just watch and wait.
Yes.
But having said that, I spoke to a woman in America, and bless her, she was having a terrible, terrible time. And she was probably the worst person in that sense to talk to, because she was beside herself. And I think it can have such an effect on your psychology that you do need to have support. Maybe therapy, actual talking therapy, or maybe, you know, pills and potions. And I don't think, you know, you do what you need to do for you.
Absolutely.
And the only person that can really understand your body is you.
You interviewed 50 women. How easy or difficult was it to find these women going through the menopause?
Easy peasy. Honestly, once you start talking to people, and I do tend to talk to people all the time, and I mean, at the minute I'm finding men on Twitter to talk to for my book. You know, I'm a bit cheeky. I'll just sort of say, oh, would you mind? Can I talk to you about this? And before you know it, you undo a can of worms, and you know, you find out that people are all going through this. And I don't know if you've come across the Menopause Cafe. Have you come across the Menopause Cafe? Yeah,
I've heard of that.
That's an amazing thing set up by Rachel Weisz up in Scotland, and it's a free thing. Anybody can set one up, but she just gives you little guides of how to do it. And a lady set one up in South London where I live, and I went along to it, and it was amazing. It was amazing. It was just full of, I think it was about 30-40 women, all menopausal, and you just went round having not speed dating at all, but little groups of conversations, and you just felt normal in the hideousness of it all. And I think that is so important, just to have those conversations and talk to people and offer your information, and then people take and leave what they want.
Is there anything that you found was a relief to your symptoms? Did you try to have like alternative treatment or options?
I was like a teenage girl, pissed off, angry, couldn't be bothered, ate all the wrong things, put on loads of weight, as well as the natural weight putting on that you do with menopause anyway.
Okay.
I just sort of almost shoved two fingers up to it, to be honest. I was really petulant, which obviously didn't help. But there was something comforting about that, and I thought, well, I'll deal with it at the other end. But the one thing I think there's two things actually. One, somebody said to me, you've got to go to the gym, you've got to use your muscles. And I was like, oh God. I hate the gym. I hate it. I do yoga, and that's fine. But you see, yoga in the menopause, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Depends on how lax your muscles are. If you're too lax, if you're hypermobile, it can send you into the osteopath the next day. So I did actually go to the gym very, very reluctantly. And again, I was like a grumpy teenager. And I just went in there. The first time I went in, I just did 20 minutes. And I came out feeling fabulous. And I only did 20 minutes. And it was like my muscles had gone, thank you. I've been telling you, thank you. And I don't go mad. I don't do anything aerobic. It was just literally lifting some weights and using the muscles in my arms and my legs.
But that's a lot, 20 minutes for the first time in a long time, or first time ever.
Yeah, it was actually. But I did it consistently until we went into lockdown. So I have been going to the gym 3 times a week until last year. And I don't go mad. I don't break out in a sweat because I hate sweating, because the menopause just makes you sweat anyway. But my muscles, it was literally like going, oh, thanks. And also, I wasn't particularly a bad teenager. I wasn't a bad teenager at all. So I wondered whether I just got a double dose of being adolescent at menopause.
So now that the gyms have reopened, are you planning on going back?
Friday morning.
Woo! First time back in what, 3 months? 4 months?
Oh, last November, I think it was, or beginning of December. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Well, very best of luck to your muscles and your body. Interviewing all these women, have you found a recurring theme?
Isolation, feeling alone, feeling like you're not normal.
Even though you met them at the Menopause Cafe, where everyone is sharing.
No, I didn't meet them all. I only met a couple at the Menopause Cafe.
Oh, okay.
Just these other walks of life. Yeah, it's the same. I think it's, you do feel isolated. You do feel cut off because you suddenly feel different and not quite as you were. And you might, and your friends might not be in the same position as you.
Yeah.
So where your normal networks of support are, they might not necessarily be there. And then you might not have a partner. You might have a partner, but you might not have a partner who's very supportive. or your children, the cliche again, but the children are probably going through puberty perhaps at the same time, maybe. You know, so it's just, and everything's just a bit more of an effort. So I think there's that feeling of, who am I? What's it all about? I'm really lonely. I'm really cut off. Nobody feels like me. And this is just hideous. But actually, that's what I found with my other book too, interviewing people. The amount of people, they'll say to me, I bet you've not heard this before. And I'm like, I've heard it so many times. You know, we're not dissimilar. We're really not dissimilar.
So you're saying that we're living in a society, but basically we're isolated from anyone.
I think it's just, again, you have to just put yourself out. Either write things down so it's out of here, or talk it out with a friend, or be creative somewhere. There's been some amazing creative projects done by the menopause. You know, art and stage and song and comedy. There's all sorts of stuff, and I think anywhere you can purge it. And that was my little book. I mean, like I said, I'm not really writing about the menopause. I've got other projects on, but it was a real necessity. And I woke up that morning going, "Gotta purge it," and it wasn't on my agenda because I was doing other things. So I think there is something in you that needs to come out, which way, and that might be, you know, rock climbing or whatever it is. You've got to find what your thing is, I think.
Is there anything in particular that you learned from writing this book?
Yeah, we need to listen. And I think it's not just about my writing this book. I think it's generally listening to all the people I talk to and interview, learning to listen to other people, but also most importantly, learning to listen to yourself. And it sounds like a cliche, but if you just spend, even if it's 2 or 3 minutes every day, just on your own in a space, and just listen, tune into your body, tune into your head, tune into whatever, because if you don't, you get a bit scattered. And I think it's just so important. And you know, the cliche, all these things are cliches, but they do work. You know, just breathe, just slow down.
From writing the book, you found out about all that?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Because I do genuinely believe you learn by experience, you learn by listening. Other people's stories, what they tell you, but you're having a conversation, so you're hearing them and they're hearing you, and it goes back and forth, and you can really put your jigsaw pieces together and just become a bit more knowing, a little bit more knowing. But I wouldn't repeat the menopause ever again. I'm glad that's done. I absolutely am. It was physically the hardest thing I've had to deal with. Are you a menopause expert or a psychologist?
I specialize in the menopause in a nutrition way.
And was that you took it because you experienced it yourself, or were you interested before that?
No, because I experienced it myself, and I realized that my clients were in the age brackets. And at the time, I was more specialized into weight loss. But aside from weight loss, they had all these tiny symptoms, because for them it was tiny. And I realized, well, actually, you know, it's not tiny symptoms. It's just like menopause symptom. You're just not aware that you're getting into that phase in transition, and you need to start doing things differently. It's not like preparing your body to lose weight. It's preparing your body for menopause. And losing weight is important, but there is a lot more that we could do to prepare your body for the menopause and beyond. And that's when I decided to switch my marketing message and to actually say it like what it is. You know, it's just menopause. But no, I have no training in psychology, in CBT. I don't do that. I understand it, but I don't practice.
No, I think I don't know if I mentioned this before, but my very first awareness of the menopause was when I was 26, and a lady came over from America to give us a workshop about the menopause, and I thought, I'm only 26, this is not going to be very interesting. It was so interesting. And she was talking about, she had a very sort of hippie like view on life, but she did say, and it just struck me, she just said, you know, we're coming into our second phase of life, or our opening, and she used the cliche
second spring,
the butterfly coming out of the chrysalis, and I mean, yeah, genius. Because you don't need to put up with so much rubbish anymore. You don't put that onus on yourself. You let things go a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's quite liberating. So there is a positive.
Yeah, and actually, I think it's the right way to prepare women at a younger age, the menopause, because menopause is experienced younger and younger with this at this time of history, and with premature menopause, and so it's always best to be aware of what might happen, so that knowledge is power.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the earlier you
in fact, this was a couple of weeks ago. Me and my husband were asked to go to Chelsea Art College to do an interview for a project that some 20-year-old students were doing there, all about the menopause. And they'd been funded by, I can't remember who it was now, but somebody had funded them to interview loads of people, men, women, all walks of life, about their thoughts on the menopause. So I took my husband along, and there we were, sat in the studio being interviewed. And bless him, he's been very on board with it and he's understood it. But I do think having that support in your partner or a parent or a child or a friend or whoever, going along at the same pace as you, understanding you, is massive. It is really all about support, really.
Yeah, having the right support makes a lot of difference, or all the difference. Because sometimes we can't think by ourselves, so having someone to hold us by the hand and just, recap what's going on, and it's going to be okay. It's very important.
Yeah, definitely.
Knowing what you know today, what do you wish you knew 5 years ago? And it can be related to menopause or not. It's just about some.
I think with the menopause, I think it's knowing that I knew it was coming, but sort of, and I don't know whether you can actually tell somebody. It's like having a baby. You can't tell somebody what it's like until they've actually physically given birth. Because I remember having that conversation. Somebody had had a baby a few weeks before I had my first, and I said, tell me what it's like. She said, and she tried really hard, but it gets lost in translation.
Yeah.
So I think you can't tell somebody, but I think it's knowing that it's not very nice, and it's knowing that it could last a long, long time, and it's knowing that you're not necessarily going to feel like you anymore, and that might take a long time to come back. And it's knowing that one morning you're going to wake up and somebody's injected a load of fat around your belly that wasn't there before, and it's knowing that you can't be bothered. And it's, or if you just had that insight that actually made you go, okay, this is normal, rather than sort of finding out for yourself. But I don't know if that could actually happen.
What do you mean?
Just because I think you have to experience it in order to feel it, to understand it. And if somebody tells you, yeah, you're going to feel shitty, it's like, it's not really feeling it and experiencing it, is it?
But being aware that it might happen makes us feel like, okay, this is not me becoming crazy or my body going like, all over the place. It's just normal in a way. It happens. So I think it's reassuring.
A lot of women I spoke to said, they thought they were getting arthritis and becoming old and decrepit. And classic, muscular and bone pains are classic menopause. But again, it's not that. It's not knowing. And I think, again, if we teach kids in school, in fact, I think my son has had a lesson now on the menopause, and he was 15 at the time. So, that's good. I mean, there's a lot more education and a lot more knowing, and workshops are being done in companies. So
I'm doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I find it so important, and now companies are more and more, they understand what's going on, and that they need to support, their senior employees and stars, because they might just leave because they can't manage their symptoms, they can't do the work. So it's important. So I'm all for creating awareness and helping for a solution, of course, but at least if you create awareness, you can create awareness to more people, and I think, they can go from there and decide whether they want to go HRT or whatever.
And I think there's also something about, when I've spoke to the older people who've long past it, their memories are very, very faded, which again says something good. You do forget it once you've passed it and you've gone through it and you're through the other end. It seems you do forget that, and you move on to the next phase of life. So it's not a place where you stay, you travel through. It's just the traveling through bit that's quite tricky.
What is the best tip that you could give our listeners? Because you want to discuss menopause, so about the menopause, what is the best tip you could give them?
Slow down. Just slow down. Give yourself that time. And I know we've all been slowing down in lockdown, which has been great in lots of ways and not great in others. But just, you know, creating that little, like I said before, just that little space, and just rather than trying to fit 15 things into your day or try and have 14 conversations or, you know, try and just slow down. And there's a, you know about breathing. I mean, I just think even if you just do 2 or 3 deep breaths 3 or 4 times a day, nipping into the loo at work or, you know, wherever you are, in the car when you've just parked up to go and get your shopping or whatever it is, and just spend. It's amazing how a couple of seconds, just taking a few deep breaths, makes on your body.
Totally agree with you. Totally.
Yeah. So it's simple things. I don't think there's necessarily a cure. There's a support and there's help, but I don't think there's a cure because it's a natural process.
No, it's a tip. You know, it's what works for you, and if it works for you, it might work for someone else. So thanks for sharing. Do you have someone in mind that you think would be good to interview next? It's a tricky question, obviously. I think you don't want to answer.
I think you should interview a man.
A man
who has either a man who doesn't know anything at all, and just by having that conversation, it'll be very interesting for women to watch what men don't know, or the opposite, a man that's gone through it with his partner or in their workplace or whatever. Not in a I don't mean in a medical way. I mean literally like a personal thing. So that then the women who watch, I'm not saying it's all women who watch this, but just then they can go, that's what my husband doesn't know, or my partner doesn't know, or perhaps he could do, you know. In fact, there's a lady who's written a book for men about the menopause.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't read it, but I thought genius.
Yes, you'll have to get her on actually
as well.
I think she's called Ruth, but that's terrible because I've completely forgotten, but that's normal because I forget quite a lot.
Well, with keywords, I might, find the book, but I remember seeing it at some point.
Yeah, but definitely I think definitely a man on here would be brilliant.
Thank you so much for answering all my questions.
Welcome. You're very welcome.
So you're in the process of interviewing doing the interviews and then write for the last book, but all the first 2 books are available to buy on your website.
I need to show you my other book, don't I? Oops.
Yes, please show us.
This is my.
So the first one is called Collective Conversations, because we can read upside down. So I have to.
Yeah, and that's sort of a self-help book. You can answer the questions yourself. I'll leave you space to answer the questions that I asked.
Okay.
In there. So that's quite, and it's a nice, lovely gift.
Yes. And then the second one. Yeah, it's getting really dark. And the second one, which I will show again, is called Menopause, a Hot Topic, which I've read and is absolutely amazing, and I would recommend because I've read this one, so I can do that. And if they want to find you on social media, you're on Instagram, obviously. Yeah. The handle is Collective Conversations, and it's the same for Facebook. And you're also on Twitter. And
I don't really go on Twitter, if I'm honest. I do occasionally, but not really, because there's too many platforms. It's all too much.
I agree. Okay, so you're also on Twitter, but you're not really active on it. So in case they want to follow you, it's Sam Bunch 1967.
Yeah. And but really, I think my website, because it's a nice place. I like it.
Yes.
Which is collectingconversations.com.
Sorry, yes, I haven't mentioned that, but yes.
That's my favourite place because I've spent so many years in that website.
I have to say I loved it. You know, when I arrived on your webpage and I was like, wow, this is like peaceful, and I wanted to read, and I didn't go into your blog, but I wanted to read more about you and what you do, and you post on interviews as well, I've seen.
Yeah. I put extracts of the interviews I do with the men on there. But it's just a nice place. That it just feels lovely. It's taken me a long time to get it like that, but it's nice.
Okay. Well, Sam, thank you so much for your time.
Nice to meet you now, at long last.
And you. And speak to you soon. Bye, Sam.
Bye.